it's me again. I'm back to run you through another case, true crime, conspiracies, whatever you fancy. So if you are slightly obsessed or just a little bit intrigued about true crime and things like that, then this is the channel for you, because I am exactly the same. So I thought I would do something with the thing that I do constantly and bring some cases to you so we can talk about them. So please do, please comment on my videos, please like, please subscribe to my channel, and also if you see my video on Facebook, please give it a share, please comment, please like. Also, if you have any videos that you want me to do, anything that you find interesting, feel free to private message me or comment on one of my videos and let me know, because I have people doing that for me now, and some of the cases I'm given are really, really good ones. Really good ones. So thank you for that. Thank you for anybody that has done that. And thank you for your continued support. It's been brilliant. Today, I'm going to do quite a difficult video, actually. It's not a very nice one, and it's surrounded by conspiracy theories and things like that. So I thought we'd talk about it. And they just mourned, I guess. I think it's 19 years since it happened. So I am talking about the attacks of 9/11. Something that I've always held very close and I always get very emotional about, because I've studied it a lot. I've always been very, very quite obsessed with it, about the conspiracy theories, and I've watched every single movie out there, every single documentary, and I just find it fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So I'm going to talk about that today. I just want to do like a little disclaimer. Obviously it's a difficult topic to talk about. It does include things like terrorism, and there are children in it, and it's quite a tough one. So if you haven't got the stomach for it, please click off my video and go and watch one of my others. But I'm just warning you right now. And also, or any video that I ever make is not meant to offend anybody. So September the 11th, 2001, 19 hijackers stole a total of 4 planes and crashed them into various locations. The first 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers, the North Tower and the South Tower, early hours of the morning, and the third plane crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, and the 4th plane actually crashed into a field because the passengers of this plane are heroes, and they tried to take their plane back, and unfortunately the plane crashed, but I commend them for what they did. So the video today is going to be a little bit different, because I'm going to do a bit of a timeline more than going into loads and loads and loads of details, because some of the details are quite uncomfortable. So I thought I'd just break it down a little bit and do a little bit of a timeline. So this is the first time I've been doing this, so please bear with me. Please, thank you. So at 7:59 AM on the 11th of September 2001, American Airlines Flight 11 took off from Logan International Airport in Boston and was destined for Los Angeles. Everything was going well, all the passengers were setting in, and then at 8:14 AM, both pilots stopped responding to Boston air traffic control. Now this sometimes is normal. Things happen on flights, sometimes the radios accidentally get turned off, etc, etc. So the person on the ground obviously kept trying to contact them, which is completely protocol. This is what they do. However, 2 minutes later, at 8:16 AM, the plane actually went off course, and it was heading one way, and it turned left, and it started heading towards the area of New York City. Boston Air Traffic Control obviously still trying to make contact with the aircraft. They're getting no response. They don't know what's happening, and at this point I think people do start to panic, as you would. And then at 8:21, the aeroplane's emergency transponder signal was turned off. And what that does is it sends signals down to air traffic controls all over the country, in this case, to let them know where they are, so they can keep planes from crashing into each other, and you know, all the good stuff that you want when you're a passenger. And this one was turned off. It just gone. Not long after this, 2 of the flight attendants, Amy Sweeney and Betty Ong, made contact with American Airlines. They called them up and they told them that their flight had been hijacked by two men. People had been injured, people had been stabbed, they think people are dead, and they don't know what to do and they don't know what's happening, and they can't really give them much more information than that, other than their plane has been hijacked by two men, two Muslim men, is what she said. Obviously, they tried to get into the cockpit, but they couldn't gain entry, and at this point, then nobody was really. You can hear it in Betty's voice at least. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't out of control. She was concerned for the people that had been injured. There was a gentleman that had had his throat cut, and one of the other flight attendants had been stabbed, and she thought that he had died. But she wasn't panicking. She had it fully under control from what we could gather. At 8:24, one of the hijackers tried to make an announcement into the aeroplane, and he was saying, obviously, stay calm, we've got planes, you won't be injured, we're going back to the airport. But instead of doing it to the passengers, he actually transmitted it back down to the Boston Air Traffic Control. So at this point, Boston Air Traffic Control know that they're in trouble, that the plane is in trouble, and the passengers and the pilots are all in trouble. So this is when they obviously start to really panic, and they're still trying to make contact, but they're obviously not getting anywhere. They need to know where this plane is, because they're very concerned, obviously, about everybody inside, but obviously all the other aeroplanes as well. They don't want them to crash into other aeroplanes, and they don't really know what's going on. It's all very confusing. So at this point, they decide that they're going to go against their protocol. They're going to contact NORAD, and NORAD is a military place that basically run by the military. That's what it's run for, and it's for this kind of situation. They'll get their fighter jets, and they'll go and they'll try to shoot planes down if they need to. Whatever needs to be done up in the air that is illegal, etc., NORAD is contacted. One of the engineer guys on Boston Air Traffic Control side contacts somebody for NORAD. The issue now is that on that day, the military had already planned a not real life situation that they were training for. So they were training for this kind of thing. So when they got the phone call, there was a lot of confusion about whether it was real life or not, and they spent a good time trying to confirm whether this was real life, despite the fact that the man at Boston Air Traffic Control was telling them this is real life, this is real life. They panicked. They're the military, and yet they still panicked because they had no idea what was happening. They were confused. It's just messy. It's just really, really messy. And I'm not saying that if the military had got their act together quicker that this would have all been prevented, because it probably wouldn't have. I don't know. Boston Air Traffic Control managed to get in contact with another aircraft. Coincidentally, this would be the aircraft that was hijacked second. But they managed to get hold of them, and the pilots were still in control at this time, and this is how they managed to locate American Airlines Flight 11. This is how they did it. They confirmed their location, and eventually they could get that through to NORAD, and NORAD could plan on getting some fighter jets up into the air to try and do whatever they needed to do to safely land this aeroplane. Unfortunately, it still took a long time to get the coordinates that they needed. So sadly, the two fighter jets didn't actually get up into the air until 7 minutes after the plane had already hit the first tower. It's a lot of unfortunately, isn't it? It's a lot of what if, this should have happened, this should have happened. I mean, what's done is done, but you've got to wonder. You've got to wonder. So meanwhile, at 8:14 a.m, another aircraft was leaving the same airport as the first, and they were also heading towards Los Angeles. And this is United Airlines Flight 175. Again, it was a scheduled flight. It left on time. Everything was going how it should go. Everybody was in their seats, and as soon as the captain or the pilot turned off the seatbelt signs, shit hit the fan, basically. And I think that's what happened in most of them. Now, no one actually knows what exact time this aircraft was hijacked. It's estimated to be between 8:42 and 8:46 a.m. But they do know that by 8:51 a.m, the aircraft again had gone off course, and it was heading left and it was going again towards the New York City area. However, this time the hijackers did not turn off the transponder, so the people on Boston Air Traffic Control down on the ground could follow what they were doing, and they could see their location up in the air, and they knew exactly where they were heading. At 8:52, the crew member for this plane made contact with American Airlines also, and he also told them that his flight had been hijacked and the two pilots were dead. He knew they were dead, they'd been stabbed, and he saw everything, and that people had been injured, and the two pilots had sadly passed away. From this aircraft, passengers had made contact with family members, and a lot of the family members were then calling the police and calling the airline and saying, I've got a message from my son, my daughter, my whatever, and they're saying that their plane has been hijacked and this is what happened, and that is fantastic. That is exactly what they needed to do, because nobody else at this time was aware anything was even happening, and it was just between American Airlines and NORAD and Boston Air Traffic Control, and obviously not everybody knew about it, and they were struggling to get the pieces to fit together, and they didn't understand. So these people making these calls actually really helped a lot, and if you do get time, please go onto YouTube and listen to some of them. At 8:20 a.m, another aircraft took off from Washington Jules International Airport, and that was also heading for Los Angeles, and this was flight 77. This is another plane that would be hijacked. Again, they're not 100% sure what time it was hijacked, but it can be estimated between 8:51 and 8:54. And they say this because at 8:54, the aircraft started to divert off course and heading in a completely different direction to where it was supposed to go. The hijackers on this plane did turn the transponder off. At 8:56, they turned it off and the plane was lost in the sky. So, without even having contact from anybody on the aircraft, they knew this was another plane, another hijack situation. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because this aircraft ultimately ends up crashing somewhere else, but there was reports that the aircraft actually crashed at 9:09 a.m. We now know that not to be true, because people on the aircraft itself were making phone calls after this time. A flight attendant called her mother at approximately 9:12 a.m. and it was her mother that then called American Airlines to let them know that this was another plane that had been hijacked. So again, another member of society that did the right thing, reached out to the right people, and ultimately and sadly lost her daughter, and it's absolutely tragic. The final plane to be hijacked was United 93. This is quite a famous plane. I mean, they're all famous for tragic reasons, but this one had its own movie made about it, and it's tough. It's a tough watch, because United 93 was obviously again hijacked, but the passengers of United 93 weren't having it. They were not going to let these men kill them. If they were going to die, they were going to do it on their own terms, alright? They weren't going to let no hijackers kill them. It weren't happening. This aircraft took off from Newark International Airport and it was heading for San Francisco in California. At 9:28 a.m, all of the other three aircrafts had crashed. They had gone down, and people on the United 93 flight were able to make contact with family members and other people, and they were getting information to say that two planes had gone into the Twin Towers, one had gone into the Pentagon. So they knew they were going to probably die, and they knew that the plane had been hijacked because it was a terrorist act. It was somebody declaring war on their country. They knew that. All the passengers and the pilots on this plane weren't injured initially. They were all pushed to the back of the plane, and this is where they were able to make their phone calls. The two hijackers were in the front, in the cockpit, and there was another man stood outside the door, preventing anybody from getting in. And again, listen to the phone calls. Listen to them. Because the resolve that some of them had and the fight that they had to get back to their families is truly incredible. It really inspired me, to be honest. The entirety of the United 93 hijack and the hijackers driving the plane was recorded. They could hear every single moment that was happening down on the ground. and they could hear the hijackers arguing back and forth. And then just after 9:28, you can hear the pilot on the radio screaming, "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday, they're taking the plane, Mayday." And then at 9:31, the hijackers did the same as the first two planes, and they tried to make an announcement to the passengers. However, it transmitted to air traffic control on the bottom, so they again knew that the plane had been hijacked, and obviously at this point, because of the other instances, they were pretty confident that the plane was going to crash. But they could hear everything that was happening because the radio was never turned off. I don't know whether the button stuck, I'm not 100% sure, but you can hear absolutely everything as it's happening. You can hear the hijackers arguing with each other. You hear it when the passengers were trying to barge in. You can hear shouting. Now, it is disputed whether the passengers ever did get into the cockpit. The families and friends obviously think they did, but authorities and the official report said they didn't. So, I mean, we won't know. We weren't up there, and it's all pure speculation, in my opinion. We'll never know if they got in there. I like to think they did, and I like to think that they killed those bastards before they hit the ground, but we'll never know, unfortunately. So I'm going to briefly talk about the crashes, because it's very hard to talk about. But at 8:46 a.m, American Airlines Flight 11, the first one to be hijacked, was crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Centers. It hit between floors 93 and 99, destroying all of their floors and killing all those people instantly. And anybody above those floors were trapped, because in the North Tower, all the stairs were destroyed. Obviously, the lifts were destroyed. Obviously, they were going to pass away. At the time of the crash, 87 people, not including the hijackers, died on the plane. Nobody survived. One of them, this is really hard, the youngest person to die on the aircraft was a 2-year-old little girl who was travelling with her parents, and the oldest person on the aircraft was 89 years old, and she was travelling to visit her grandchildren. At the time, nobody knew what was happening. At 8:49 a.m, CNN did a news report about a small private plane that had crashed into the World Trade Centers, because that's the reports they were getting. They didn't know it was a passenger flight to begin with. Obviously, the fire departments all around the area, paramedics and police were all deployed to the location to try and evacuate the North Tower, to clear people away, to get everybody safe, to put out the fires. A lot of emergency services people went to the scene. At 9:01 a.m, exactly 17 minutes after the first plane crashed into the North Tower, aircraft 175 crashed into the South Tower. Tragically, everybody on the aircraft died on impact, and it killed over 1,000 people who were inside the World Trade Center. I find, I don't know whether the right word is fascinating. I don't know, but the whole thing was captured live on television, because obviously they were already reporting the crash on the North Tower. So the crash of this aircraft into the South Tower was caught for everybody to see. Everybody witnessed this one, and they could see at that point that it was not a small little private plane, it was a passenger plane. So that got more speculation going about what was happening. This plane hit between floors 77 and 85. Like I said, it took out all of them floors. However, it did leave one staircase free for the people above to escape. That was very, very lucky. So some of them actually did get out, but not many, unfortunately. And as I said before, over 1,000 people died on impact. At 9:37 a.m, Flight 77, the third to be hijacked, hit the first floor of the Pentagon. It is seen on video flying over the side of the Pentagon, turning right round and just descending really fast, really fast. It is said to have been going 530 miles per hour, nose first, and as it came down, it was taking out street lights, it was taking out everything in its path. basically. When it hit, it hit a lamppost and it kind of spun and kind of went sideways into the Pentagon. It killed all 66 people that were on board the aircraft and 100 and so others who worked in the Pentagon. Some of them being military, some of them being emergency services. But thankfully, they managed to really, really quickly evacuate the Pentagon and managed to clear up very quickly as well. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they did make sure people were safe and they healed the injured and started getting reports on what was happening in New York City. I don't know what goes through their head when they hear things like that. It must be so scary, so scary. And then we jump back to New York City because after 56 minutes of burning, the self tower, who was hit last, actually collapsed first. And the video for that is everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And this happening is one of the biggest conspiracy theories ever because of the way it collapsed. Because if you watch it, the tower itself collapses outwards, and people who are called themselves truthers, who think that they know the truth of what happened at 9/11, despite the fact there's no scientific fact for what they're saying, says that jet fuel couldn't burn that hot to make it bend outwards on itself and collapse that way. So they're convinced that a bomb was planted inside. And then at 9:57 a.m, passengers of United 93 charged and tried to get into the cockpit of their aeroplane. And like I said earlier, it is disputed whether they got in or not. However, a few moments later, the aircraft did crash nose first into a field. What's interesting is, like I said before, that you can hear all the radio, all the talking that's happening. And just before the crash, you can hear the hijacker screaming at somebody saying, "We're taking it down, we're taking it down." And then you can hear a very, very clear English accent shouting, "Pull it up, pull it up." And it's very eerie. There's a very eerie moment, literally the second before the aircraft hits the ground. You can hear a very, very calm English voice saying, "Pull it up, please." That really freaked me out. That was really eerie, because the voice is so calm, and it makes you wonder, really, what actually happened inside that cockpit. I think the passengers did get in, and they did try and fight the hijackers and pull the plane up. Unfortunately, whatever happened. The plane ended up nosediving and crashing and killing everybody on board. But the people on that flight are heroes. They did whatever they could to try and save their lives to see their families again, and I get quite emotional. Not long after United 93 crashed into the field, the North Tower of the World Trade Centers collapsed. It had been burning for 102 minutes and it collapsed at 10:28 a.m. And it's hard to watch. The thing for me is that when you watch these, you know, 100% know that there are people in those towers who are dying, who are going to die. And that's what I find very difficult. It's very difficult to know what we know now and know that they're going to lose their lives, and it's shocking and it's terrible, and I don't think New York has ever been the same since. Many victims from the aeroplane crashes and from the deaths inside the Trade Center and the deaths inside the Pentagon, their bodies have not been found. Or bone fragments may have been found, or identification may have been found, or items of clothing or shoes may have been found from this victim, but the victim themselves have never been seen again. And that's really, really, really troubling. These people were people when they woke up on September the 11th, 2001, and they're still people now, but they're people that we don't know where they are. They're just vanished. And I couldn't imagine being one of their family members, and not knowing where they are and not having somewhere to bury them and to go and talk to them. And that must be really, really difficult. And my heart really does go out to everybody that was affected by 9/11. Where the Twin Towers once stood, there is now a memorial, which is called Ground Zero. I know a few people that have gone to visit it, and they say it's absolutely beautiful. They've got all the names of all the victims on a wall or on slabs. I can't remember what they said, but it's absolutely stunning, and it's a beautiful reminder of humanity and about people coming together. And although it's eerie, people have said it's eerie to go there, to know that these people have died there, it is a beautiful reminder of life and people, and it is very beautiful. I would love to go visit it, just to go and see what it is, what it looks like and how it feels. It doesn't bring their loved one back, it doesn't, but it must be a little tiny bit of comfort to know that there is somewhere they can go and think about their loved ones, and know that the people go there out of respect for their loved ones. That must be a really nice feeling. Well, I would have thought. There is one positive thing that came out of everything. After the towers collapsed, 20 people were actually found alive in the rubble. And again, there is a film about 2 policemen who were found in the rubble, and I actually watched that this afternoon and cried my bloody eyes out. That's a good one, go and watch that as well. It's got Nicolas Cage in it, that's always good. So yeah, I say it was positive, it's not really that positive, but I mean, I know I didn't go into a lot of detail today, and the video is actually quite short, but I didn't want to go into too much detail because I don't think it's very respectful of the situation. I mean, it was a terrorist attack, it was a certain culture that attacked a country, and I just want to say one thing, and this might piss people off, and I don't give a crap, but just because somebody is a Muslim or wears a hijab or anything like that, please remember that does not make them a terrorist. Please remember that. The stuff that happened on September the 11th was an isolated extremist group of people that took it upon themselves to murder over 1,000 American people. Well, not even American, 1,000 people, but it was in America. There was people from all over the world in these World Trade Centers, and that is why they attacked them, because it was a clear message to the world. But that doesn't mean that your next door neighbour, who is possibly a Muslim, is a terrorist. So my final thing I'm going to say is please stop with the hate. Just stop. It doesn't make anything better, and it doesn't bring back all the people that were killed on September the 11th or the people that were killed on the 7th of July attack in London. It doesn't bring them people back, and it doesn't make any difference to them if you retaliate or attack somebody because they're Muslim. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't make it right. So please stop that. Please. It's not the same as my other video, so please let me know what you think, about whether you want to know more. I can do a second video if you would like me to about the Twin Towers, because there was a lot more to it than what I've said. There's obviously the massive conspiracy theories and such, but I haven't gone into them today because I don't think it's right. But if you want me to do that type of video, I will. But please just let me know. Okay? So that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, stay safe, don't kill anybody, and I love you guys.